For this Full Build Friday, we're going to look at a character for a game that I have, once again, never played. In fact, it's a game that hasn't even been properly released. So, be sure to let me know what you think of this build for Ivy Arroyo from Deadlock. This gremlin-like gargoyle gal is an interesting little character with an array of abilities, so let's take a look at some build goals for her. Once a simple gargoyle, she was awoken by a family being menaced by some criminals and descended to protect them. She was taken in by this family, the Arroyos, and became a protector of their community, wiping out the cartel that reigned over it. She has since found herself without purpose, leading to her joining the conflict in Deadlock. She fights using a rapid-fire rifle with moderate range that resembles a crossbow. Her kudzu bomb summons a patch of choking vines in an area that damage and slows enemies within it. She can form a bond with an ally through Watcher's Covenant, granting both of them increased fire rate and bullet lifesteal, while replicating healing among those connected in this way. She can return to her roots with stone form, immobilizing and making her impervious before she drops into an area to stun and damage enemies there. Her ultimate is Airdrop, which allows her to take flight with a bomb or an ally before she can drop them in a large explosion. While doing this, she and her ally gain a shield, but this is also the only time that she really flies in the game. This is a weird mix of abilities in a character, with Ivy being a gargoyle able to drop herself or her allies on top of enemies, while also forming a bond with them that increases their combat capability. Furthermore, she's able to use the vines growing across her body to tangle up enemies and leave them vulnerable. Right off the bat, representing Ivy's ancestry is going to be interesting. But I have been thinking about how to make a gargoyle for a long while. We start off with a Strix ancestry, leaning into her flight capabilities that we really only see in use with her ultimate. However, lore-wise, this fine female is a fully functional flyer, so we're going to lean into that if we can find the room for it. However, that doesn't quite fit the state of her stony self, so to capture that, we use the Oriad heritage. For now, this will just upgrade her low light vision into dark vision, because we're spending her ancestry feat on fledgling flight. This grants her a super limited form of flight that we will expand on as we level, and then she takes ability boost to her dexterity and her wisdom. As to her background, I wanted something that would give her lore around her community, as that seems to be important to her. Between that and her nature as a protector of it, and a bit of a gargoyle lore, I settled on Night Watch. This makes her trained in intimidation, which might seem a bit off for her, but also gives her that lore for her home settlement. Or legal lore if you want to go that way. She also receives the Quick Coercion skill feat, but Ivy is a surprisingly kind individual, so this feels like it might be a touch wrong. Maybe it's just her relying on her fearsome appearance. She's going to need to carry people down the line, so we're going to look at a boost to her strength here, and then a free boost to her dexterity. With the range of abilities that Ivy has access to, we settle on Ranger as her class. Rangers are martial warriors who have feats that can help them with a variety of weapons, as well as access to focus spells, which will come up shortly in this build. The Hunt Prey doesn't quite fit the concept of this gregarious gargoyle gal, but Watcher's Covenant increases her fire rate, which leads to the use of the Flurry Hunter's Edge, reducing the penalty on multiple attacks in a round. Admittedly, she doesn't get the most use out of this right away, because she's going to start off with a firearm or crossbow. I went for an arbalist based on the design of her weapon myself, but take whatever fits your fancy. Nevertheless, this Hunter's Edge does fit her concept, and we're going to stick with it. She can go Initiate Warden as her class feat to gain access to the Gravity Weapon Focus spell, helping her work a bit more damage into her kit. But this is mostly important as a prerequisite for another feat that I have my eyes on. Since we went with the Ranger class, Ivy will become trained in Nature and Survival, and then chooses to become trained in Acrobatics, Athletics, Society, and Stealth. She receives a boost to her Dexterity from her class, and then takes her 4 free boosts to Strength, Dexterity, Constitution, and Wisdom, for the sake of casting some of the Warden spells that she'll be picking up. At second level, Ivy takes advantage of her stealth training to take the Sniping Duo Dedication. This is inspired by Watcher's Covenant, reflecting her ability to bond with another character and empower the both of them, though in this case, one of them is mostly going to be mixing it up in melee. Notably, the damage boost here is Circumstance, while the damage bonus of Gravity Weapon is Status, so they will stack. As to her skill feat, she takes up Hefty Hauler, with the intent of using it to lift her allies when it comes time to airdrop. Rangers start 3rd level with an increase to their will, and then Ivy increases her acrobatic skill, making her an expert in it. Since she was taken in by a human family after awakening, she uses Adopted Ancestry as her general feat here, with the human ancestry, which means we now have 3 ancestry feat options to look at the next time that comes up. Moving on to 4th level, Ivy will take Running Reload. One of the folks on the Discord mentioned that Ivy has good stamina, and needs some mobility options to represent this, and this one definitely helps with that idea. Her next skill feat is Multilingual, which is mainly a joke as she speaks English and Spanish in the game, so if you have a better idea for her here, go for it. 5th level comes with a series of ability boosts that we will apply to Strength, Dexterity, Intelligence, and Wisdom. This increase to Intelligence makes her train in crafting, and on the topic of skills, she also becomes an expert in Nature. As a ranger, she becomes an expert with her weapons, and gets crit effects against her hunted prey, and then also receives Trackless Journey to better cover her tracks. Juvenile Flight as her ancestry feat just increases the flight speed of her fledgling flight, which is admittedly very useful. 6th level comes with some big options, such as Masterful Warden to gain the Ranger's Bramble Focus spell, which is how we'll be recreating her Kudzu Bomb. Now, the bleed damage only happens on a critical failure, which is why we're going to take all the boosts that we can get to her Wisdom. Furthermore, with Ivy falling at the end of her flight right now, she'll take Catfall as her skill feat, which will reduce the damage she takes from falling should she ever get knocked out of the air. For our rambunctious Rocky Ranger 7th level, she gets Natural Reflexes to crit on her successful checks, increases her Perception of Master, and then gets Weapon Specialization for extra damage on her attacks. Acrobatics is the first skill to make it to Master with her increase here, and she also gets a General feat. She spends it on Ancestral Paragon to take unconventional weaponry from her adopted ancestry, and then uses that to treat a retreating crossbow as a martial weapon, which will let her get more use out of that increased fire rate from her Watcher's Covenant. That new weapon also makes feats like Exploit Opening at 8th level a little bit more usable, as she doesn't have to be as worried about not being loaded to lose out on something like this. This helps increase her fire rate by letting her attack out of turn, and also gives her a Sniping Duo feat. For more action efficiency, she has Kip Up as her skill feat, so that she can stand as a free action, and more importantly, do so without provoking reactions. Nature's Edge at 9th level is particularly potent on Ivy thanks to her Ranger's Bramble, which gets an increase in proficiency thanks to her Ranger expertise here. She follows that with a skill increase to Nature, becoming a master of that skill. She also gets full-on fly speed with Fully Flighted as her ancestry feat, which will be helpful in carrying companions into combat. We start 10th level with ability boost to Strength, Dexterity, Constitution, and Wisdom. She finds another reaction in the form of Tag Team, which will give her spotter a chance to get some of that increased fire rate in by letting them attack out of turn. Given her flight capabilities, she uses Aerobatics Mastery as her skill feat, which is a little nebulous, but does just generally enhance her ability as an aerial agent. 11th level comes with a number of class features, such as Medium Armor Expertise, Unimpeded Journey letting her bypass difficult terrain, and then Warden's Endurance for crits when she succeeds on her fort saves. A skill increase bumps her society up to Expert, given her association with her community of Spanish Harlem, and she finally grabs Fleet, giving her some more mobility to chase down troublemakers. While that increased her land speed, we can also increase her fly speed with the Winged Warrior Dedication at 12th level, but that's far from the only reason we'll be taking it. For now though, she grabs Morphic Manipulation as her skill feat, inspired by her association with the verdant vines that grow over her. 13th level means that Ivy has Martial Weapon Mastery, and also masters her Society skill. She finally works in some representation for Stone form with Shy Tan Skin, giving her Mountain Resilience as an innate spell, which will let her become not quite invulnerable, but a good bit hardier. We look at representing some of the other aspects of Stone form with Thunderous Landing, allowing Ivy to drop it on enemies to displace them, meaning that they will have to spend actions to re-engage, which is as close as we're going to get to a stun on this build. Really wish this dealt some damage though. Wish it had some of that thunder. Given her association with bombs, alchemical crafting serves as her skill feat here, since this will give her the ability to assemble some of those explosives on her own. Ivy proceeds to kick off 15th level with ability boosts to Strength, Dexterity, Wisdom, and Charisma. Greater natural reflexes makes her a legend in reflexes with an arsenal of other benefits. Greater weapon specialization means more damage with her weapons, and she also becomes a legend in perception as well as her acrobatic skill. She takes toughness as a general feat here just to play more into her stony stoutness and sturdiness. For the 16th level of this build, Ivy takes Bombing Run to replicate the effects of airdrop when she doesn't have an ally to lift up. She gets Rolling Landing as her skill feat as a way to get more movement in her kit as a reaction, letting her drop in on enemies and then keep running and gunning. At 17th level, Ivy becomes a master in her class and spell DCs, gets bonuses on her hunted prey, and reduces her multiple attack penalty even further. She sticks with her nature skill to become a legend in it, which might feel a bit odd since she is a city gal. Heroic Presence as her ancestry feat here is actually helpful, with the temporary hit points representing the shields of her airdrop. This build reaches back to the beginning with 18th level, as Ivy takes Hunted Shot as her class feat, really taking advantage of her Flurry Edge, as well as the action economy. For more support functions, she takes Tumbling Teamwork to tangle targets and give allies the opportunity to reposition. With Swift Prey at 19th level, Ivy can hunt prey as a free action. She also receives Medium Armor Mastery, and increases her Society to Legendary. True Perception just makes use of that legendary perception that she already has, but if there's a general feat you like better, absolutely take it here, this isn't a big deal. Rounding out the recipe for this rocking roving roustabout are 4 boosts to Strength, Dexterity, Constitution, and Wisdom. For her class feat, she uses Warden's Boon to grant the effects of Flurry Edge to an ally, sharing that fire rate as she can with Watcher's Covenant. Given her Society skill, she picks up Eyes of the City as well, letting her use Society to track down creatures in a settlement so that she can root out any criminals poisoning her community. Now that finishes up the baseline build, but let's talk free archetype. The options I've already presented here are very good, and can be explored faster and farther with this variant rule. However, another option you could consider is actually a Barbarian dedication. This is utterly bizarre, but it isn't without reason. It provides us with Friendly Toss to resemble her ability to deliver her allies into combat with airdrop, and also lets her get Impressive Landing, to add some damage when she drops in on enemies to better resemble her stone form. It is seriously goofy, but it kind of works out. With that all said, we've chiseled out one hell of a champion. But let's take a moment here to look back on what we've made. Ivy Arroyo is an Oriad Strix Ranger with the Flurry Hunter's Edge and the Night Watch background. She actually references her adoption by the Arroyos with the adopted ancestry feat, and uses her Society and Eyes of the City to root out criminals threatening her community. Her Flurry Hunter's Edge and Hunted Shot, as well as some of the Sniper Duo feats, play into her rapid-fire weapon, which she represents through a repeating crossbow. Ranger's Bramble recreates her Kudzu Bomb, letting her trip up foes, though she does need them to critically fail against it to take any damage. She has a range of feats to support her allies based on Watcher's Covenant, her Sniping Duo dedication, Warden's Boon, and even a bit of Heroic Presence. Her stone form is assembled through a pairing of 2 other feats, which can actually both be done on the same turn. First off, there's Shaitan's Skin to give her some resilience, and then there's Thunderous Landing, so that she can drop in on enemies and throw them off balance, rather than a full-on stun. While she doesn't quite have a feat to let her bring an ally along for a flight, she increases her bulk limit to facilitate this with Hefty Hauler. Or she could just use Bombing Run with the bombs that she's made with alchemical crafting to drop them on foes. For the shield that she grants to herself and her teammates, she has Heroic Presence, as well as her flight feats to let her take into the air. A craggy crusader, this crepuscular caretaker carries companions into combat, crashes chaotically in on criminals and cartels, and cruises through courts and causeways with her capable cannon. This is my first attempt at a character from Deadlock, and I'm honestly pretty happy with it. But be sure to let me know what you think of this build and what other sorts of builds you'd like to see with a comment. You can check out some item suggestions and character sheets for this build, and other builds I've done over on the Monster Monday blog, which is linked below, along with the Twitter and Discord. Thanks for watching, and have a fantastic Friday.
It was a world of fear. It was the age of gargoyle.